Colour can make a huge difference to a sunrise shot like this. For example, we've got a bit of a blue cast to this shot. You can see some blue here and in the highlights on the rocks as well, and it looks very cold and uninviting. But if we warm up the colour temperature using the tools in the Camera Raw editor, we can create much more attractive and inviting looking landscapes very easily and very quickly. And here you can see also there's a bit of a gradient in the sky, and in the standard editor I'll show you how to create a gradient fill layer and just warm up the top section of the shot. Let me turn that off for a second. You can see the difference it makes to our shot, and I'll show you how to do one of those in due course. But first of all, let's start by going into the Camera Raw editor and opening up our source file. So let me just close the start and end images to start with, and we'll create our file from scratch by going to File, Open, navigate to the CD, and you'll find Sunrise Before, click Open, and because it's a digital negative file, a DNG, it'll automatically open up in the Adobe Camera Raw editor, and here we have the tools we need to adjust the cold looking color temperature. Now it's very easy to adjust. You just drag the temperature slider to the right and that warms up the shot, and if we take that up to around about 18, then that should just give us a nice warm looking color temperature. If you can see the before by clicking here, you can see it's very cold. Click again to turn it back on, and already we've improved the highlights here. They're much warmer in the rocks than they were before. Let me turn that off again for you. Back again. So it's a subtle and quick edit, but you create a much more attractive looking image. The next thing to do is to boost the colour because it's slightly desaturated. If you want to see the shot as a whole, just right click and choose Fit in View like we've done here, and then we can boost the saturation. Actually, saturation isn't the best thing to do because that tends to make a global adjustment. So if you've got very strong colours, they become too strong and possibly unprintable. The best thing to do is to use the vibrance slider because that leaves the stronger colours alone, and it's also good at targeting nature shots like this because it tends to boost blues and greens and natural looking colours. So drag vibrance to the right, so around about 30, and that will give the greens a little bit more impact. I'm not worrying too much about the sky because I'm going to add an orange tint to that later in Photoshop's standard editor. Talking of the standard editor, we need to take the shot into that now because we've done all we can in the Camera Raw editor. It doesn't have tools like a gradient fill, so we need to click Open Image, and you'll see that in Photoshop's standard interface. I'm using Elements 8, but you can do all of these edits in versions 7 and 6 as well. So to edit this particular shot, we need the Layers palette, which I already have open. If you don't, what you need to do is go to Window, Layers to activate it. You can then drag it out of the palette bin so it's floating around like so. The next thing to do is to add a gradient fill to the top here just to warm up the sky and enhance our sunrise. And first of all, before we do that, let's just create a nice orange colour by clicking in the colour picker here, and then we can choose an appropriate foreground colour from this orange section here. And if you want to use the same orange that we used in the tutorial in the magazine version, then type in 40 for hue and then 80 for saturation, and leave brightness on 100, and that will give you the same orange. Click OK, and you can see the foreground colour has changed now. We're now ready to add our gradient fill layer, which is an adjustment layer, and that gives us more control over it. We click here, go to gradient, and there you'll have a linear gradient. It'll be going the wrong way to start with, so click reverse. Let me just Control plus to zoom in, get a better look at that. And the next thing to do is to edit the type of gradient we've got. So it's coming from the top to the bottom, which is fine, but it's a little bit too steep. We need to make it more shallow by clicking here to edit the gradient in the appropriately named gradient editor. And to create a more tight gradient, what we're going to do is take this opacity stop here and drag that until the location at the bottom is 42%. There we go. You can type in 42 into the little box there, but now we've got a much tighter gradient from the top, and it peters out just about here, which restricts it to the sky. Click OK to apply the change, and then click OK here as well to finish editing the gradient. Okay, now the danger with Photoshop is that it can look too photoshopped, and this isn't very subtle, is it? So what we need to do is blend the edited layer here with the background, and to do that we can play with layer blends. If we go down to, well, experiment by just clicking here and then using the down arrows, and you can see lots of different types of gradient blend. That's not too bad with multiply, but the one we've gone for in the end is penlight, because that leaves a little bit of the original colour showing through and gives us a nice warm looking sky. Again, it's still too over the top. Remember, less is more. When you first start using Photoshop, you always go over the top, but let's reduce the opacity now to make the effect more subtle. And if you take it all the way down to around about 43%, something like that, it's a subtle but effective way to warm up your sunrise. Let me turn that off to show you the before, a little bit cold, turn it on again, and there we have a subtle enhanced sunrise. And remember, we've also warmed up the colour temperature of the foreground as well to create the finished image.